All right, everyone. Welcome to the Text Adventure podcast from the Text Adventure Book Club. We are an online book club. We meet monthly-ish to discuss books about video games and video gaming and the intersection in our lives. I am joined this month by Mr. Dan Bethel, the creator of the recently finished webcomic Long John. Dan, how's it going?
Doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on. And yeah,
Dan,
Long John's done. 11 years. It's crazy.
Happy Easter, Dan.
Happy Easter, Chris. I know we are both incredibly devout, and this day means a lot to us. So yeah, I'm glad I could share this experience with you.
I was thinking in the shower this morning of you, as I often am. I was like, I might be the least religious person in the history of the world.
Well, I might challenge you to being even less religious than you. I don't have any sort of Easter traditions at all.
But you don't even go to the store and pick up like a Cadbury mini egg or a Reese's peanut butter? No, really?
No.
Jelly beans?
No.
Really?
Nothing specifically for Easter. No, it's funny. Like we might have this in common. Like if it ever comes up in conversation, I guess I don't even know how appropriate this is for this podcast, but who cares? That they find out I'm not religious. They're like, "Oh, you're an atheist." I'm like, "No." They're like, "What? What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm not even part of the conversation, man."
Right.
Like I was raised in an absolutely secular household, not anti-religious. It was completely a-religious. Like that's something other people do. We didn't talk up about it or down about it. It's just like, oh, that's what they do. And so it's like people are like, how can you not be religious or have an opinion on whether there's God? I'm like, because it's just, I don't have opinion on how jet planes work either, man, because it's just never been a part of my life.
That is not at all why we're here to talk today. We are here to talk about the book Critical Hits, Writers Playing Video Games, edited by John Robert Lennon and Carmen Maria Machado, published by Graywolf Press. This is a collection of essays. And Dan, I'm not going to lie to you. I was 2 essays into this book and I thought, I hate this. There were some that redeemed themselves further along. Like, you get an album, especially back in, when we grew up.
We're super old. We bought and maybe still buy albums, yes.
And some bands front-loaded their albums. All those big 90s bands had the big radio hits within the first 3 or 4 songs, it feels like. There was maybe some good ones in the back end, but all the singles, all the hits were generally up front. And this book kind of took the opposite approach.
Yeah.
Or this book took the bangers and put them in the last half, and the front half I found to be a absolute slog.
Yes, I'll extend the metaphor you used a little bit further. Like, remember when I don't remember this necessarily. I was around for this transition, but one thing I've noticed in hindsight is like once CDs came along and people moved away from cassette and vinyl, they're like, let's fill up all 88 minutes worth of this shit, right?
Sure,
and so you started getting, and I think it's even worse today since there is no real cap on things. Like, you started seeing albums get too long as well, and like especially like a lot of pop albums nowadays, like nothing against these musicians. I'm just talking about the length of their albums, but like Taylor Swift albums and like they're like 18 songs. I'm like, why?
Oh, for sure.
This is way too much music.
Some of them are up to 30, because it's a double album. You don't have to produce 2 physical things anymore. I watched that recent Red Hot Chili Peppers doc on Netflix. About Hillel Slovak. It was about their early years.
Oh, okay.
And there was a period of time in the late 90s, right around Californication, when the Red Hot Chili Peppers were my favorite band in the world. I was 14 years old. I am prime Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? And so I picked up all the CDs and stuff, and I just went back on this kick. I drive an old enough car that still has a CD player.
Hell yeah!
So I put Blood Sugar Sex Magic in, which is like that's the album, right?
Yeah,
their biggest one. That album is 8 songs too long.
And it's only 10 tracks? No.
No, it's like 17 tracks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? You got the big ones, you got Give It Away, you got Under the Bridge, and it just gets diluted by having all of these kind of also ran songs that probably should have been edited out at some point. A lot like this book. Could have lost 5 or 6 of the essays and probably would have been better off for it.
Right. And I want to make it clear, like, also, I don't think let's keep talking about, let's keep talking about
music. It's a music. Neil Young, am I right?
You are right. But I just finished his autobiography. We could talk about that later.
Shaky?
No.
Waging Heavy Peace.
Waging Heavy Peace. Yeah. A kind of a nightmare of a book, but it's totally Neil Young. But anyway, I don't want to say that any of the essays here are poorly written. I don't think so. But I think you're right. I feel like it ended with the bangers. I think that's also where they start getting a little bit lengthy, which is okay. I wasn't looking for long. I like actually short essays. And tell me about as a teacher grading essays right now. I love short essays, but I think the biggest problem, nothing against the editors either, but is kind of the editing. I think the beginning is a slog because a lot of the essays are kind of about the same thing. It's kind of like, okay, I got it, and so to the point. Similar to you, I got about a third through the book, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go on a podcast and say I hate this book, but it definitely is a matter of just organization, and again, perhaps being too fulsome or including too many essays. I think if you edited it down, like took out 5 or 6, 7, you'd have a pretty great book here. Right.
But I thought there were some very good ones here.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
I particularly want to call out, there was an essay called Staying with the Trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Which was about...
That's the Leisure Suit Larry one, right?
Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah.
And kind of like playing games that are meant for audiences much too old for you. I have distinct memories of being a preteen and going into my neighbor's computer room, logging into the...
Climbing through the window when they weren't home. And
logging onto the beige desktop in the CRT monitor and playing Duke Nukem. We were far too young for that, but there's a rite of passage to scamming your way into a mature game that I thought was captured really well in that essay.
And what I liked about that essay as well was it also offered... obviously, the person's talking about personal stuff that they were going through and how this game kind of was haunted their lives in a way. But they also provided interesting critique of the game. Like, it's like we all know it as like it's the lecherous game. It's this crazy, sexy game. But like, no, it's about a very sad, lonely person. Right.
Like, Leisure Suit Larry is not a hero.
And yeah, it did kind of what this kind of essay does best, which is providing. And there's I think this book is indicative of kind of a movement that happened through games criticism starting in the late aughts, which is just it's as much biography as it is critique on a game or gaming. That it does a pretty good job of personal investigation while also doing a really interesting critical investigation of a video game. It has something to say about the game. And that's kind of where those early honestly, a lot of the essays in this book kind of fell down. Like you said, like the game kind of became just a dressing for biography. One that stood out to me that I thought was basically biography and gaming intermingled here. But again, I thought it had a really interesting take on it was the one called Cathartic Warfare about Call of Duty, Modern Warfare.
Also one of my favorites.
Incredible story about
it's a young man, Middle Eastern descent.
He's from a young man from Afghanistan who loves playing first-person shooters, military first-person shooters, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare comes out, and he's suddenly an Afghani man shooting Afghans, and he's like, "This is weird," right? But what was interesting is like he really dove into that sort of that disconnect you have when you are in a game. Something that's touched on in a different essay, where like this sort of like you leaving your body as you go into this game and inhabit this character or inhabit this moment. And he really did a really interesting job just explaining that dissonance, where he wasn't like, he wasn't necessarily like, I'm so offended I can't play this, I have to go out and complain and not complain about it, but like protest against it.
Sure.
He was just like, it makes me feel weird.
Yeah. Originally it was World War II, and then it was like an unidentified, kind of fictional. But then as the Call of Duty series progressed, it became explicitly people who looked a lot like him and his family.
Right.
And he describes, looking down and seeing a face of these, dead characters who he just killed in this game. And they look, a lot like him.
Yeah, here's a quote that I found pretty incredible. from the book, from page 77. As a 14-year-old Afghan-American immigrant, I felt strangely comforted by this ambiguity, talking about, like, don't worry about that. These aren't Iraqis I'm murdering, I kept telling myself. They might not even be Muslim. I was able to construct a barrier between myself and the virtual enemy. They and I were different. They and I were opposed. It was just a game, just play. Right? It's like it's a wonderful encapsulation of what it can feel like to go and play a game. This sort of the idea of games being escapism, like literally, and getting out of the oppression of the life you live just because of the color of your skin or where you were born. And even when the game is explicitly kind of setting up the enemy as someone that looks like you, someone who's culturally, at least in this culture, generally oppressed or othered, he still found a way to kind of disassociate in a way, while not running away from the complicated politics of it. Just fantastic work.
There's an essay called Cocoon about the Alien vs. Predator series.
Oh yeah, dude.
It's really about having the experience renting a Jaguar 64 in the early 90s with his friend, a system that nobody had.
Nope. And it's a monstrous design.
Huge.
Right now, dear listeners, go ahead and go into your Google. That's what the kids say, right? And look up the Jaguar controller, because it is a problem.
There's a quote here of the sales figures.
Nice.
So the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling system at the time of writing, with 155 million units, right? The Jaguar, by comparison, sold fewer than 150,000, which is like the size of some big concerts.
Honestly, I thought you were going to say sold fewer than 150. I'm like, that tracks as well.
I've never seen a Jaguar in person. Like, I never knew a friend or a kid who had one.
Because they live in the jungle, dude.
And the one game was Alien vs. Predator that you kind of saw in the gaming magazines.
Yeah, it totally was.
And so that game kind of had this like mythical quality of like, oh, this is a really cool Aliens game that you'll never get to play because it will never come to a system that people actually own. So I love the first half of this essay where he's talking about, renting the system, playing it with his friend, and they sort of had this, kind of secret memory of a game that not many people played. And then it devolves into a list of Alien vs. Predator games, like
and slight commentary on all of them, basically.
Right, and a lot of them the author didn't even play, and I was like, oh man, you could have cut all of this out and could have made this way better.
It did start to undermine the argument he was making. I was like, okay, I get it. You love Alien. I think he's written a book about, or Aliens specifically. But what I liked about that essay, or found fun, was it also speaks to something that happens, I guess to everybody. I know it's definitely happening to people in our sort of gaming generation, where we look back at the games we played in our youth, and like we remember them as these vivid, magical, deep experiences. And then when you actually go play them again or look at them, you're like, oh no, that's not how I remember it. And the way he was describing this Aliens versus Predator game, like, wow, it sounds so just like systematically like progressive and interesting, and because you get different experiences depending the faction you choose, right? The alien, the predator, the human. And it's like he was talking about just sort of environmental stuff, and I'm like, what is this game? Was the Jaguar much cooler than I expected? And I go watch some gameplay of it. I'm like, oh, this looks rough. This looks rough. But hey, I'm not discounting that the stuff you talked about happened, but it definitely shows just kind of like when we encounter something new, especially it's new and novel in terms of gameplay, or same thing's true for like movies or books you read. You're like, oh, I've never read anything like this before. I've never played anything like this before. Like it's an explosion of just, you feel new folds form in your brain, right? Like, I'm understanding life differently now. And
there's definitely a tendency to build things up that you experience into this like monolithic, and it's always the like B games, right?
Yeah.
Or it's always the movies that like rank 80 out of 100 or whatever,
Right.
But you see them at this very specific age as a kid,
right?
And the fact that they're not quite popular almost adds to it, right? Like it's this secret, really cool thing that only you know about, and you go your whole life thinking about how cool this thing was or whatever. But and then you go back to it, and it's just like this little rinky-dink thing, and you're like, I should have never looked at this again.
He also brought up, like, talking about a nostalgia hit, talking about renting consoles. I'm like, oh man, I forgot you could do that. Did you ever rent consoles?
No, my parents wouldn't allow it.
Nice.
But I do. I remember the big suitcases at Blockbuster,
Mm-hmm.
and not to shit on my parents. We had a Nintendo. They bought me a Sega Genesis. They bought me an N64. My friends had a Super Nintendo. So it's not like I was without.
You're
But
just covering your ass because you got to go over to your mom's later today.
right, I do want those deviled eggs.
Yeah, right. That's important.
But yeah, the
Yeah.
odder things like the 3DO and the Jaguar and stuff
Right.
would have been cool to experience as a kid, but
Sure.
never was quite in the cards.
I think I rented a Super Nintendo once before I had one. Then the only other system I remember renting was a Genesis because I never and had that one. And I think because it came in that sort of that Pelican briefcase, that's
Yeah,
like it's the football, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like the nuclear football.
And just bringing it home and opening up, it's all like in there. It elevated the status of like the Genesis in my head. Like, look at this fancy thing I got in my house, and I have to return it, and it has to be pristine. I can't fuck with it. It was a cool experience, even though it's just a Genesis.
Talking about that, was there a B game that you rented with that system that you kind of build up in your mind? I'm thinking Cool Spot for some reason.
I don't think I'd rent an entire ass system just to play Cool. It was mostly the Sonic games and whatnot, but was it the Sonic Pinball game? I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it was.
Like it felt like, oh, this is the game that it felt like Sonic always wanted to be, but they had to make it a platformer because they needed to sell copies originally. But then they actually just made the pinball. Was it Sonic Spinball? Was that the name of the game?
It was Sonic Spinball. You're right.
But it took all the cool parts about going fast in the Sonic games and made pinball on, it made a video game pinball.
Yeah,
fun.
Almost the platonic ideal of a spin-off for that series.
Right.
But yeah, is that you would say Sonic Spinball is your Genesis memory?
I kept going back to, yeah.
That's funny because like I said, never had a Super Nintendo, but my neighbors did. And the thing that we would play all the time is the Super Scope, which was this bazooka light gun that had its own Super Scope game.
Yeah.
And I never watched a replay of it recently. I can only imagine that thing sucks ass. But as a kid, it was so weird and so different that the Super Scope seemed like this mythical thing that only lived at Johnny Mirabli's house. You know what I mean?
Shout out Johnny.
Shout out Johnny. Right after Cocoon, there's a graphic memoir bit called Video Game Boss about the author working at Sega.
Yeah, that sucked. Not the story didn't suck.
Really?
The situation sucked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it
the
was
comic
super
was fine.
interesting.
I thought the comic was good, but it's like, what a shitty situation, man. It's like, it's basically a comic about being gender discrimination and just kind of being pushed out, getting the job you always wanted. And finding out it's a terrible job, right?
Right. It's only 4 pages, but I think in those little bit, it kind of shows man, being a video game, tester or a low level employee, really does suck, right?
Yeah.
And then you get these really cool projects to work on, and you're just not important enough to the company to make any sort of meaningful contribution to it.
Right. And also exploring just still how much of a what do you want to call it, like a frat environment game development still is. I remember being surprised to learn that initially. What was was it called Video Game the Documentary or something like that? But there was a documentary about.
Yes, was that about Jonathan Blow?
Oh, and a couple others. It was Jonathan Blow. It's been a minute.
Right.
But maybe I'm thinking about. I watched
Phil Fish.
Phil Fish. Yeah, Jonathan Blow.
It was that era of auteur indie games.
Yeah. But I was actually thinking there was an Atari documentary, kind of about the whole rise and fall of that first wave of home consoles, and just being kind of surprised and disgusted how broy they were, right? And just one of the main reasons why it collapsed is because they were making money hand over fist, and they were because it was the 70s. They were just partying and just being dicks to everybody. And then the floor fell out from under them, and learning that, that's how games are in the 70s. There was a lull. Games came back with Nintendo, and everything moved forward from there. It can't be like that anymore. We learn from our mistakes, and this is not this is a very new book, right?
Yeah.
And she's talking about experiences working at companies that are just one just kind of traditional video game company, and then she went to work for like basically a women-led company, and it was just the same at both. Of like, she wasn't part of the cool crowd. She didn't go out of her way to to buddy up and socialize and get initiated, for lack of a better word. And it broke her spirit.
That good old boy corporate culture where you're either part of the in crowd or you're not. And if you're not, you'll just never be accepted or promoted.
Right. And so it really is a condemnation on the fact that even though games have gotten better, and we saw this a bit with the Schreier book. Like I'm thinking of and even the GoldenEye book, where that was there's still a lot of that bro-y, although that was a more positive experience, honestly. They were really kind of like try stuff out, and but
GoldenEye and Rare was definitely a boys club, but it seemed like that was just kind of like by I guess design, but
it was. But so it sucked to learn, especially as we keep reading these books, like that culture that I thought kind of lived and died with Atari is still very much around. And that's too bad. One that stood out to me, I did like, even though it was super weird, I liked Mule Milk about Final Fantasy VI.
Right?
Because it was a real
sort of Cormac McCarthy-ish. Sort of like broken, sparse narrative prose.
Yeah, it was.
I thought that was really interesting. Who was that written by? I gotta look it up to shout him out.
Keith S. Wilson.
Keith S. Wilson. Yes, Mule Milk was by far one of my favorites, and I've never even played Final Fantasy VI.
That's crazy. Well, that's not crazy. It's fine. I'm not going to do it.
But it's this really interesting sort of, God, it sounds weird to this, but he's talking about the history and biology of mules, like the animal.
Yeah.
And sort of comparing, contrasting, and debating that along with the character of Terra in Final Fantasy VI. God, have you played this game?
Monster, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, she's part magical monster, part human, and her dealing with that and her ability to transform between those two forms is a central part of her story in that game, and something she is really dealing with because the monster aspect of her is a very maligned group of creatures in that world. So she's kind of like, oh no, you're one of them, kind of thing, and which, as you can see, already sets up a sense of what this essay is about, like the search for identity and duality and stuff like that.
Right.
So it does actually kind of conform to some of the things we were complaining about with some of these essays, but it's written so interestingly. And like I said, I learned a lot about mules and
and breeding of mules and what can and can't happen.
Right.
Was Final Fantasy VI one of your favorite Final Fantasies? I can never remember.
Oh, bro.
It was.
Bro.
Okay.
Oh, bro.
Is that the one you imported?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. I have on my wall, which is not a video podcast. I'm not on video, so you can't see anything. A framed sort of poster they released to in Japan to celebrate the release of the soundtrack on CD, because I love the music.
Amazing.
And then I have literally on my desk in one of those window boxes a Super Famicom box and game of Final Fantasy VI. Yes, that game is very important to me.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I was really excited to read that, and was first going like, "What the fuck is this essay about?"
Right.
But by the end of it, it became one of my favorites, just because it was so unique and so well written, and provided commentary, in this case on a character in the game, applying it to their own biography, and also putting that interesting twist of mule stuff, it's mule breeding, and hey, it kind of, you couldn't finish that essay without learning something.
This was almost the most successful of intertwining video games, personal memoir, social critique. I feel like I'm going to have to search out more things by this author, because I thought that it was just so engaging and unique within the book itself that I would love to see what else the author has written. And finally, the last two essays of the book are probably some of our favorites. No Traces is about the author experiencing Metal Gear Solid, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with Migo and Johnny's House. He played Metal Gear Solid with his friend, who goes by the pseudonym S in this essay, and they rented Metal Gear Solid and kind of played it together experienced it together. And what I liked is in the author's memories, he wasn't even sure who was playing what,
Right.
who was holding the controller, who was, leading the way. It kind of became this shared experience that only these two had at this very explicit moment in time around the UK release of Metal Gear Solid. And I thought I captured the nostalgia of playing games as a kid really well. The sort of mysteriousness of Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And like we've always talked about, that feeling of things in your childhood being monolithic memories, that Metal Gear Solid, I would say, probably still stands up pretty well.
Yeah.
But in your memory, it's always this like epic adventure that you go back to. And I thought that this essay, No Traces, did that really, really well.
Yeah. It also just captures the experience of what it's like to kind of get lost in a single player game. There's a great quote here talking about exactly what you were mentioning about playing this game with S, the friend there. For S and me, the intimacy of our experience hung on that sense that for hours on end, neither of us felt like we were physically physically present in the room. Even if only one of us navigated Solid Snake through the weapons facility, across the mined snowfield, up and down the communication towers, we were both him, in his sneaking suit, smoking his cigarettes. It was only when we saved the game and switched it off that we returned to our bodies and ourselves. What was important, though, was not only seeing oneself as someone else, Solid Snake or whoever. What's important was there was someone else there to witness it. That's what separates playing the game alone and playing it in company. Someone else participates in your imaginative adventures and reifies them. That also is a key. It triggered me in a positive way of my best friend growing up, a guy named Josh. Most of my memories of renting games on the weekends is he's there too, right?
That's awesome.
And similarly, like I remember playing dozens of games and saying that I played them, but I really, if I were to put it down, like I don't know how, where at what point during the games my hand was on the controller. Yeah. It was a fascinating observation. Yeah. The other aspect of this essay that was fascinating was that the author is Irish, and was lit. When Metal Gear Solid came out, the troubles, as they're called, were still an ongoing concern.
Yes.
And again, I always loved the name because it feels so quaint compared to what was actually going on.
Right.
And there's a great quote towards the end of the essay here that encapsulates what it was like to be alive in Ireland at that time, which is, looking back now, I know that S, after playing Metal Gear Solid on a Friday night, having blown a hole in the armory with C4, would have been trained to check under the family's car on a Saturday morning for anything resembling a bomb. It's only now I realize how, as close as we were to each other, how unknowable we also were. Like, that was an ongoing concern.
Like S's dad had this mysterious job, right? That was at night. Right. And nobody really talked about what it was. And it turned out he was part of the paramilitary force. I'm not right. Too up on the history of the Troubles, but
we're not Irish history professors here.
Right.
Sorry.
But this dad could have easily been a target for terrorism during this period of time. And they're playing a game about terrorism and counterterrorism and nuclear strikes, and really an interesting background that this essay didn't even need it. This essay could have been about the nostalgia of playing a game with a friend and blah blah, and this sort of really unique feeling.
Context,
this unique context of being during the Troubles and the father being a military target was really interesting. Something that I would be. My life is so far removed from that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't imagine being 10 years old and checking under the car for a car bomb.
I know, it's wild, right? But like one of the only situations in the book where literally skills you learn in a game could be applied to real life, right? A lot of the other stories, this helped me adjust and find out who I like. It's all metaphorical. It's all you got to do some logical leaps through hoops to find the applicability. No, it's like no, actually. you know how to get out of a bad problem. Lean up against the wall and knock on the wall to distract them. It's like it's crazy. It was a crazy reading experience, and again, growing up in that, he almost wrote about it in a kind of cast off, blasé manner. And that's what happens when it's just your existence. Yeah, it's crazy. It was good work. Yeah, it was a really good essay. So should we talk about We're More Ghosts Than People? Hanif Abdurraqib.
We're More Ghosts Than People, about my favorite game, Red Dead Redemption 2. And it's sort of this meditation on being good with a capital G. And the experience of making bad decisions but still being a good person, or making good decisions being a bad person. And the concept of religion as insurance or bail, depending on the type of life you lead. This by far was the most successful essay. I think they knew it because they buried it all the way at the back.
Right.
And it's only 9 pages long. I would encourage everyone to check it out. But I by far was my favorite of the essays. And
going back to how we sort of started talking about this book, it is the most successful, one of the most successful of what essays like this can do, of the intertwining of biography, introspection, and commentary on the game. I was really fascinated with sort of his rumination on death in video games. And it's like, oh, there's always a fix. There's where is it? Like, all the video games I grew up loving had a fix for death. Nothing was permanent. And just kind of the first time he hears Arthur Morgan cough, he's like, oh, it's okay. They'll figure something out to get him out of it.
Right, like, I'll get an herb or some sort of salve later in the game.
His sort of rumination on death in games was really interesting. Yeah, it's just great. It's great.
Yep. So I think that's going to wrap up our discussion of Critical Hits. Probably my least favorite of the books that we've read. I wish that you could pull out 4 or 5 of the absolute bangers in here and disperse them in a different way.
Yeah. I think if I were to rank them, because this is our 4th one, correct?
Yes.
I would do it would probably at the top would be the Schreier book.
Yep.
And then Goldeneye.
Yep. And then Drucker, and then this one.
Maybe I might put this one over Drucker, because
really
Drucker just made me upset at points. Like I don't know if I like you, Drucker, right? Whereas at least this one was, again, I think the biggest problem is that it was overlong and the structure of it wasn't strong. But the essays generally were good, and the essays there's, like you said, a handful of great essays and a really good reading experience. But yeah, it was just tough to get through because it was so long, and the order of these, there's, like you said, the front loading of very similar essays just kind of took a toll. Like I said, with the notes in the table of contents, towards the top of the second half, I definitely, there's a line written next to like 4 of these, and I said, I'm starting to Jesus, Dan, I'm starting to tune out. Oh, Adam. I said I was starting to tune out about halfway through. I'm like, I felt kind of bad. I'm like, I'm just resorting to skimming and stuff. But I think ultimately, that's what you can do in an essay collection that you can't do in other books. It's like, oh, this essay's, I'm getting the gist of it, but I can skim it, and I'm not losing the narrative, right? And so I think, actually, I think talking through it, it would be this book and then Drucker at the bottom. They've all been fine. There's nothing wrong with the books, but in terms of my personal enjoyment, that's kind of how I'd sort things.
Like I said, I think there's essays in here that everybody should read. I think there's some really, really good ones in here. I think my top line of the review would be Less Than the Sum of Its Parts.
Sure.
So the way we end the show is talking about what we're watching, doing, playing, and I think the answer for both of us is Fallout 4, right?
Yeah.
So I recently finished, not right when it came out, maybe a couple weeks after, finished season 2 of Fallout on Amazon Prime.
Right.
Love that show. The ideal Hollywood adaptation of a video game.
Yeah.
I think
I'm a couple episodes into it at this point.
Okay. I think it perfectly captures the gravitas / the wackiness of the Fallout series.
Right.
I think that the world building is excellent. The costume design, everything is so well done. I just cannot say enough good things about the Fallout series on Prime.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the first couple episodes you've seen?
I should clarify. I'm on the first few episodes of season 2.
Yeah,
I love season 1. Like what you said, it's such a smart and best kind of adaptation you can do. It's funny because it came out a little bit after, I think, the first season of The Last of Us. The original, the first season of Fallout was in the same ballpark, and they're both incredible adaptations of the game, but they do it very differently.
Very differently.
And the thing is, I guess if the goal of a TV show is to get as many seasons as possible, then Last of Us definitely has like an expiration date on it, because unless they want to keep going with the story past the games, then we get into Game of Thrones territory and things get weird, right? Whereas this one, just
you can ruin your whole legacy by going too long or ending flatly,
right? And Fallout's interesting because it smartly looked at Fallout not as a story, but as an environment, as a context, and like, what kind of story can we tell? And sticking with the tropes of like, let's start with a character in a vault, right? And going out into the world, and
it's adapting the genre Fallout rather than the storyline Fallout.
And adapting the experience, because it captures what it's like to play the game.
Right.
And
my favorite part of the Fallout series is when stuff is goofy.
Yeah.
I love the mysterious stranger perk. I love the bloody mess perk. I love the wild wasteland.
Yep.
Every game has these sort of things that you can unlock with the skill tree that aren't really gameplay boosts, but just kind of make the game a little bit sillier, a little bit more fun. And that's my favorite part of Fallout.
And even just the general tone of the series is quirky, right? That 50s kind of aw shucks aesthetic combined with absolute ruin, and of course the technology design. I remember when we started the first episode of it's the second episode, I think, where we get it's the first episode of season 2, where we get the flashback of the Brotherhood Knight living in Sweet Springs or something like that. At him as a kid, and just seeing the cars, I'm like, that's like, being playing Fallout 4. I'm like, that looks exactly like how it looks. It's crazy how much they nailed the art design. Or there's a scene where his dad is getting purified water out of a water purifier, and I'm like, I built one of those in my town. It's crazy. It captures everything so perfectly.
And he survives by going in the fridge, right? Like the Indiana Jones thing. Which I think they proved does not actually work, but in the Fallout world, being in the fridge is absolutely how you would survive a nuclear explosion like that. At some point, the anniversary edition of Fallout 4 was released to tie in with the show. And maybe at that time or at some other time, they opened up mods to PS4. And you know me, I don't like a challenge. I got the Ring of Invincibility.
Oh man!
I got the wacky weapons mod where you can create any weapon at a chemistry station and attach any sort of mod to that gun.
Jeez. Okay.
And I am just plowing through people. I've got a mini nuke launcher. I've got a Tesla cannon. I don't have any sort of armor or anything. I'm just walking through the glowing sea.
This milquetoast vault dweller just smiling like Vault Boy, just like throwing nukes left and right. That's incredible.
It's amazing. It's my ideal way to experience this game, and I'm having so much more fun now.
So are you
one-shotting people?
Yeah. Are you okay?
I found Virgil in the glowing sea.
Wow.
I did the memory stuff to get Kellogg and Good Neighbor. Doing stuff with the Railroad, who I never even met in my first playthrough. Like, there is so much to this game that you can just not experience. But now, not having to worry about armor and blah, blah, blah. Like, the settlement thing, there's a whole system where you can set up supply lines. I had no idea that existed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you engaging with that much? Are you doing a lot of like...
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Now,
are you liking it? Are you enjoying it?
I don't do the like Polly Pocket Sims thing of like designing houses or whatever.
Right.
I just do like prefab stuff and put some beds and chairs in them. So I don't really engage with the like, oh, you can build a staircase and do this. And some people really trick out their settlements
They do, yeah. I don't
and
know how they do that.
put
Yeah.
up signs and shelves and stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't appeal to me. But I do like the recruiting settlers and planting
Mhm.
crops and sending them out to the other bases, and everybody shares the same sort of junk pool.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that part. So I am engaging with it a lot more than my first playthrough, but I'm not going as deep as some people can. I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy the settlement part of Fallout 76.
So you haven't played through the game before. You haven't done the story.
I have not.
Okay. So I won't say anything there.
I
So
kind of, over
yeah.
the past 10 years, I've absorbed most of the storyline. I know you meet your son and he's not, young anymore or whatever. So I kind of have those hits in my head. So I do have that knowledge in my mind as I'm sort of progressing through and deciding what factions and what storylines I want to engage with. But for the intricacies of the plot, I never went to the Institute in my first playthrough.
Wow. Yeah, okay, this is cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So I've played through Fallout 4 around when it came out, like not too long after it came out. I think I got it on this first time I went through like a sale. And I still think, like we were saying earlier, I think I was a little burnt out on that style of game. And so I just kind of, at some point, I just kind of just rushed through it. I did not enjoy the base building stuff, the having to go and save settlers as ghouls were attacking their stuff. I'm like,
right.
I not gonna say I had a negative opinion of it, but it didn't hit like I wanted to. I was definitely in that group of people. I'm like, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, right? But
Preston Garvey keeps coming up to you, telling you there's raiders to wipe out from the settlement, whatever. So I downloaded a mod, so he doesn't actually come up to you anymore. You have to go and engage with him.
It's been a while since I played it. I've been playing Fallout 76 and have been enjoying it.
I say this now. I think I got decently far into 76, and I mostly played it solo.
Yeah, same.
But I got to the point where you needed to grind things to get better.
Yeah.
And I just didn't enjoy doing public events or anything like that.
Right. That was my thing with 76. Was that for me, I felt like it was maybe a little too hard.
For sure.
Some monitoring
it's very
of
hard.
hunger and thirst, and then just never having enough ammo,
feeling like pick up weapons you're not leveled for, and it's just
And so I was always just kind of mostly I was running from encounters, like shit, and then they have those fucking dragons basically that I'm like, I'm just gonna hide in this box, right? And so what's interesting is that coming back into Fallout 4, mostly because of that. Well, you were talking about it, and then that chapter in this, or that essay in this book. I'm like, let's spin it up. It's a more controlled environment. It'll be easier than Fallout 76.
I found it surprisingly still difficult before I did the invincibility cheat.
Exactly, it's still tough. Ammo scarcity has been a real problem for me. But the biggest thing was having played. I'm not going to say so much of Fallout 76, but definitely that's the experience is still existing in my muscle memory of I go to tables to build guns, to repair guns, to the systems were still in my memory. And going back to Fallout 4, I'm like, I want to go, let's see what kind of guns I can build. So I go to a weapons table. I can't build guns here. I can only mod. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, I'm trying to unlearn the 76ness, but also it made me kind of appreciate some of the aspects of 76 that I liked more. I'm like, I wish I could just straight up build a gun here at a table. I wish I had more options when I'm at these repair tables, but it's a minor thing.
May I recommend the wacky weapons mod?
Maybe, but I'm enjoying it so much more than I did the first time.
Agreed.
But I will say I'm not really engaging with the story this time.
Oh, really?
Just kind of exploring. Yeah.
Have you played through the full storyline before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not particularly worried or interested in that. So I just hit level 25.
Okay, I think I hit 33.
The story beat that I need to go to is I need to talk to Penny, Diamond City, where I got her. She was in trouble outside of Diamond City, and we were able to get her back inside. And I rescued Valentine.
Okay.
So that's kind of where everything has been left. I just like, I'm gonna go walk around.
Wow, you're pretty high level for just getting there.
Oh yeah, well no, I got there and then I just went away and started just doing my own thing. Yeah. So I'm just anytime I see an unfilled icon on my compass, I'm like, let's go there and see what's up.
Nice.
And so the one thing I'm still not really engaging with, although it doesn't bother me as much as it did before, was the building stuff.
Okay.
I'm still not really into the whole the armor stuff.
I never use power armor.
Yeah, I have one. It's kind of set up at the first city you come to. I'm like, that's nice. I go in there and I mod it, but I'm not particularly interested in walking around in it.
Yeah.
What I do, or what I have done, is if I hit an encounter that's super that kills me real straight up, that's when I go get the power armor. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm enjoying playing it quite a bit, and in hindsight, with time between the Skyrim experience, time since Fallout 3, just having that kind of that experience kind of hollow out a little bit, coming to this, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This should have been, I think, had as much praise and cultural impact as Fallout 3 did, because it takes a lot of it takes what makes Fallout 3 great and just added stuff to it. Some stuff, sure, I don't like, but I know people did. It is an additive experience. It isn't just more of the same. And
there's some storylines and side quests in there that are really rich, and like the Silver Shroud storyline.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah,
super cool. You get a trench coat and a hat and a silver machine gun, and you go around cosplaying and killing these guys. Like that's like a 5 or 6 steps to this side quest.
Yeah,
and that sort of thing that you don't have to engage with at all if you don't want to.
Right.
It's kind of where Fallout shines.
Yeah, 100%. I am perhaps irrationally excited for the release of Starfield on PS5.
Really?
Yeah, it was. I've always had a weird
games with bad raps around launch.
Yeah, it's the new, it's a new IP from Bethesda, and so that was kind of enough for me to give it a shot. But I remember being super upset when Microsoft bought Bethesda, because I'm like, they're going to lock that down. They're going to lock it down. I was like genuinely like heartbroken. And some stuff from Bethesda-owned studios have come to the PlayStation. Like the Indiana Jones game. Yeah. Have you played that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's great. I was super skeptical, but going into it was super fun. It's a great game. But actually having a major Bethesda, like a in-house Bethesda made game actually coming out on the PlayStation, I'm just excited it's coming out. And it's getting released on PlayStation the same time it's getting a huge update. So in theory, addressing not all, but I'm sure a lot of the criticisms it earned upon its first release.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And
sort of a game of the year sort of edition.
Yeah. And so I'm excited to bring that sort of Bethesda Fallout Elder Scrolls experience to a sci-fi setting.
Even just a new Bethesda, like they have not they did Starfield and they announced Skyrim 2, right?
Yeah,
years ago, like maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and I still don't think that it's even close to coming out.
No,
there has been absolutely no word on Fallout 5.
Yeah, because Fallout 76 I think was kind of their
right
with Fallout 76 kind of shit in the bed a little bit, right?
Right.
I think it is a good game. I think where it is now is pretty fun. It's just hard,
right?
But it's kind of like the numbered Final Fantasy games that were online games, like Final Fantasy 14. It's like, well, now they have to dedicate resources to this game that's going to be ongoing. So, how many people can they pull, or do they have to hire more people to develop the next Fallout game in this case? And so, I don't know. I think Bethesda is an interesting place right now, and I think Starfield not hitting as hard as they wanted it to, kind of took their breath out a little bit. So I'm really interested to see where Bethesda kind of goes from here.
The thing that I think would help Starfield, and maybe they didn't even plan on this. I mean, I'm sure they didn't. Is the Mass Effect series shitting the bed so hard?
Oh, dude, yeah, right.
Like if think about if there was a successful Mass Effect game that you could be playing right now, it probably would have eaten Starfield's lunch.
100%, yeah.
But the fact that series has been put on ice, and they're getting the chance to sort of redo this release.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe could be the thing that Starfield and Bethesda needs to, because it definitely didn't capture the zeitgeist the way they wanted it to.
No, and I hope this update does kind of bring that to, because I'd love to just have another series coming out from them, because for as much as I like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, like we're getting pretty deep into that franchise, right? It'll be Fallout 5, right?
Yeah.
And the next Elder Scrolls is Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
So like it's great. Yeah. So anything to kind of rejuvenate their creativity and keep them excited to work on stuff, because especially with the success of Skyrim, I can't imagine how much stress they're under to like, well, how do we make Elder Scrolls 6 be the best game ever?
And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the reason it's taken so long, is they're just like, oh man, we have to be even better than Skyrim, and instead they just keep releasing Skyrim for 15 years or whatever.
I'm really surprised they didn't do that with Fallout 3. Just keep re-releasing it, updating it, because that game was so huge, right?
Right.
But the Fallout games they've actually been pretty quiet with in terms of re-releasing, updating. They kind of just let it exist in its own little.
Fallout did just get the anniversary update,
right?
And the second series of Fallout on Prime, like the day it dropped or the week it dropped.
Oh, right.
Fallout 76 hit its all-time peak in concurrent players.
Nice.
So those games have legs.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So it's totally possible that Starfield could, make a No Man's Sky-like turnaround.
I think that's what I'm most excited about, is looking at the game. So my science fiction, like my, space science fiction gaming experience that the gaming experience I want from that setting is very, very focused and unique. Like I want to have like a ship that I can also like, that's also my house. I can get up and like walk around and like do stuff in it. Because most science fiction games, like your ship is a weapon you control and go from place to place, right?
Right.
And I played No Man's Sky. The ships you actually fly around in are not
cars, right?
They're they're basically cars. Yeah. You can get a freighter, but it's mostly just like, it's kind of like, what was that mobile Fallout game where you're just like adding rooms?
Fallout Shelter.
Yeah. That's kind of what the freighter is like. You're like, oh, this is where I grow plants, and this is where it didn't really feel like a place I was living in, experiencing. And from what I've seen of Starfield, looks like you can kind of do that. Your ship is something you build, you modify, and if Fallout 4 is any indication, something you can kind of customize, right?
That's awesome.
So I'm looking forward to that.
You are wanting more of a Star Trek than a Star Wars.
Sure. Yeah. I guess so. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't recommend pre-ordering games. Don't do it. It doesn't matter. But like, I wanted a physical copy, so I pre-ordered it so it could be here on day one, so I don't have to leave the house.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited for that game, and if anything, playing Fallout 4 has made me even more excited because that game is awesome. And
all right, that brings us to a conclusion of this episode. Thanks so much for joining me, Dan.
Of
Happy
course.
Easter.
Happy Easter. He is risen.
Happy Easter.